It was Memorial Day weekend in Pensacola. Florida humid air clung to everything, and the scent of salt water and sunscreen lingered over the dockside ceremony. The Navy had gathered for a special commemoration honoring fallen SEAL teams. Veterans stood tall in their dress blues. Civilians clapped respectfully and flags fluttered in a soft Gulf breeze. Out among the crowd was a woman who didn't fit the mold. She stood alone near the front of the platform. Her khaki SEAL uniform was crisp. Her hair tied tightly in a low braid peeked out from under a Regulation 8-point cover. The fit of her combat boots and the way she adjusted her posture told the story. This wasn't cosplay. She wore the uniform like she earned it. But there was one problem. No one knew who she was. Retired Master Chief Earl Dunning, a grizzled SEAL from Team 5, narrowed his eyes from his seat. Something didn't sit right. He'd been in too many countries, too many jungles and deserts, not to notice when something felt off. A woman in a SEAL uniform wasn't impossible, but it wasn't common either, and certainly not unannounced. Dunning got up slowly, nodding at a junior officer. "Who's that?" he asked. The officer scanned his clipboard. Nobody listed. "Then she's either someone big or she's lying." Dunning marched up to her. Lee Monroe didn't flinch as the Master Chief stopped a foot from her. "Morning," he said, stone cold. "Morning, Chief," she replied. Her voice was steady, respectful. "With which team?" She turned slightly. "Classified. I was just here to pay respects." Dunning didn't blink. "Let me see your ID." Lee offered nothing. "Can't help you there." That's when he noticed the ink peeking from under her sleeve. A tattoo, small, detailed. It was the SEAL trident, but not just any. This one was slightly modified, laced with barely visible runes along the shaft of the anchor. He'd seen it once back in the early 2000s. It was whispered among Tier 1 operators, supposedly reserved for a team that never existed. His pulse quickened. He turned to the officer nearby. "Get security now." Within minutes, military police surrounded the platform. Attendees murmured, confusion rippling through the crowd. Leah raised her hands calmly, showing no aggression. One officer shouted, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for impersonating a United States Navy SEAL." She didn't argue as they cuffed her. She made one simple request. "Tell Admiral Jonathan Hayes. Lee Monroe says hello." The officer froze. "Hayes. Admiral Hayes retired 7 years ago." She just smiled. "Exactly." They shoved her into the back of the vehicle as the flag ceremony continued in the background. Cameras flashed from curious bystanders. Some clapped, not understanding. Others just stared. Inside the cruiser, Leah stared straight ahead, hands cuffed behind her back. The officer riding beside her leaned forward. "You know, impersonating a SEAL carries prison time, right?" She didn't blink. "I know exactly what it carries." "Where'd you get the uniform?" "Had it tailored and the trident tattoo." She turned slightly. "That one's real." The officer rolled his eyes. "Sure it is. At the local holding station, she was booked. No ID, no record." Prince came back with a mismatch to Aaliyah Marie Monroe, who had allegedly died in Afghanistan in 2012. But the match was 73% inconclusive. She was placed in a windowless interrogation room, walls pale gray, light flickering overhead. She sat there calmly, hands folded as if she had done this before. In fact, she had many times, but never stateside. 2 NCIS agents entered, one tall and stern, the other younger, eager, a laptop in his hand. The older one barked. "You already know it," Lee said. "Relax." He slammed a folder on the table. "Cut the games. Where did you get access to SEAL intel? Who trained you to speak in hop code?" She tilted her head. "Is this how you interrogate everyone who honors the fallen?" The younger agent leaned forward. "You said to contact Admiral Hayes. Why?" "Because he'll know the tattoo is real. You expect us to believe." "You should expect nothing," she interrupted. "You're dealing with something you don't understand." The agents exchanged glances. The older one got up and left. Leah leaned toward the younger one. "Do yourself a favor. Look, Up something called Project Cerberus. It's in a black file buried deep. He blinked. That doesn't exist. She smiled. Exactly. An hour passed. The door opened again. Slower this time. In walked a man with crisp posture and silver hair. His uniform bore no rank insignia. He moved like a storm held barely in check. Leah stood the moment she saw him. "Admiral Hayes," she said simply. He studied her for a long, breathless second. Then he walked around the table inspecting her shoulder. He paused at the trident tattoo, frowning. He turned to the agents. "That tattoo's real," he said quietly. "Only 6 operators ever wore it, and they were buried deeper than ghosts." He nodded toward Leah. "Uncuff her now." The steel cuff snapped open with a loud clink. Leah rubbed her wrists, but showed no sign of discomfort. Her expression stayed neutral, like this wasn't the first time she'd been shackled, and probably wouldn't be the last. The NCIS agents looked at each other in disbelief. The younger one whispered, "Sir, you can't be serious." She was arrested impersonating a CL. Admiral Hayes cut him off with a glance that could have frozen lava. "Stand down, Agent Wilcox. You don't have clearance to understand what you've stumbled into." Leah slid back into her chair, calm as ever. "Told you." Hayes remained standing, eyeing the sterile room like it insulted him. "Do you know what it cost to bury Cerberus?" he asked her. Lee nodded slowly. "I lived it." "Everyone thought you were dead." She leaned forward. "Everyone was supposed to." Agent Wilcox hesitated before speaking again. "What is Cerberus?" "A black site." Hayes turned to him with a hint of bitterness. Cerberus wasn't a place, it was a decision, a gamble. In the mid-2000s, we created 6 operators handpicked for off-book missions. Deep cover, global reach, no names, no records. They existed only in code. Lee was one of them. Calcine Viper. Wilcox's jaw tensed. "But there's nothing in our system." "There isn't supposed to be," Hayes replied. "You don't write down a ghost's name. You let the shadow work and pray it never turns on you." He turned back to Leah. "So why now?" She exhaled sharply. "Because I saw something. Someone's tying up loose ends. Our team Cerberus is being wiped out one by one. I stayed off-grid for a decade, but when I saw Killian's obit, I knew it wasn't an accident." Hayes' face fell at the mention of Killian. He had been Cerberus demolitions expert. Declared dead in a house fire last year. "I needed you to hear it from me," she continued, "but I also needed you to see this." She unzipped the inner seam of her uniform and pulled out a small USB drive sealed in plastic. Encrypted kill orders all targeting former Cerberus operatives, including me. My name's at the bottom with today's date. Wilcox reached for it, but Hayes stepped in. "No chain of custody goes through me. This doesn't leave my hand until we verify what's on it." A beep of silence passed. Finally, Hayes nodded toward the hallway. "Come with me, both of you." They moved swiftly down the corridor, past stunned security and confused officers. Leah walked without fear. She'd spent years infiltrating enemy territory with less backup than this. They entered a secure safe room, soundproofed, encrypted. The kind of room used when talking about things America didn't want to admit. It did. Hayes connected the drive to a secure laptop. On screen, a series of files loaded, names, locations, mission logs, each linked to someone Cerberus had once worked with. But most disturbing of all were the kill orders, sanitized language but unmistakable intent. Wilcox read aloud. "Termination directive. Monroe. Leah. Location. Pensacola FL. Priority level. Critical." Hayes rubbed his forehead. "Who signed these?" Leah pointed to the digital signature. "E. Kane." Wilcox searched the database. "Edward Kane, former CI, a Black Ops specialist, presumed KI 2015 Syria. He's dead." Lee shook her head. "That's what I thought too. But someone used his credentials. Or maybe he survived." Hayes sat back, haunted. Kane was the original handler for Cerberus. He knew every safe house, every call. Wilcox stared. "If he's alive, in control, he could wipe all of you out without blinking." Lee stood up. "Exactly. That's why I had to be seen. Arrest, The uniform. I needed the military to notice me. I couldn't keep running. Not anymore. Hayes stared at her, calculating. Do you think this goes all the way up? Leah looked him straight in the eye. Kane isn't working alone. He never did. Someone in the Pentagon gave him the green light to clean house. They're scared we'll talk about what Cerberus really did. Will Cox raised a brow. And what was that? Hayes answered, his voice cold. Things you don't want to know. The Admiral stood, resolved. All right, I'll call in a few favors. Deep ones. I want to verify this data. Check Kane's death report and access old Cerberus dossiers. What little remains. Leah stopped him. Time's not our friend. I need one thing from you first. Hayes turned. What's that? Let me disappear again. The moment Kane knows I'm alive, he'll come hunting. That's our shot. Hayes hesitated. We just got you back. She smiled sadly. You didn't get me back. You just remembered I existed. The room fell. Quiet. Then Hayes extended his hand. Be careful, Viper. Leah shook it. Always am. By midnight, she was gone. Left through a side gate with a forged pass and a fresh identity courtesy of Hayes. The military would deny everything. The files would be buried deeper than before. But the shadows had begun to shift. From a rooftop across the street, a man watched Leah vanish into the city. He wore a Bluetooth earpiece and had a faded scar over his jaw. He pressed a button. Target confirmed. Viper's alive. A gruff voice replied. Then we finished the job. The lights inside the hotel room flickered as Lee Monroe stood shirtless in front of the mirror. Her body bore the scars of wars that had no names. Knife wounds along her side, a shrapnel burn just beneath her rib cage, and the one mark that bound her to a past no one was supposed to remember. The trident tattoo. But this wasn't the usual Navy SEAL insignia. Etched into the shaft of the anchor were cryptic symbols, runes modeled after Norse mythology, representing protection, vengeance, and silence. Only 6 people ever wore that version, and as far as the world knew, all 6 were dead. All except her. She pulled her shirt back on and walked to the window. From the 7th floor, she had a clear view of the alley below. She'd spent the last hour scanning faces, noting movements, memorizing license plates. The first rule of Cerberus, don't get comfortable. Surveillance begins the moment you arrive. That's when she saw him. Tall, stocky, buzz-cut, wearing a Bluetooth earpiece. He'd been parked in a gray SUV for too long. Civilians don't sit still like that. She caught the glint of something metallic under his arm. He wasn't just watching, he was waiting. They found me. Back at a secure Navy records vault in Arlington, Admiral Hayes stood under low light as a technician cracked open a file that hadn't been touched in over a decade. The room smelled like dust and secrecy. I had to override 3 different clearance gates just to unlock this. The tech muttered. Hayes nodded. That's because Cerberus never existed officially, even inside the black budget. The file was slim, just enough to prove its existence, but lacking operational logs or mission results. The only intact document was a scanned page marked Cerberus Directive Level Omega. It outlined the formation of an experimental unit composed of 6 elite soldiers trained in asymmetric warfare, cultural infiltration, and high deniability terminations. Each member had no family, no traceable identity, and no future once recruited. Hayes stared at the roster, all names redacted. Only the call signs remained: Viper, Ghost, Talon, Reaper, Mantis, Echo. He swallowed. Only Leah remained. The rest had died in what were labeled accidents, but now they looked a lot more like executions. Someone wanted this erased, Hayes said, but they missed one. In Pensacola, Leah made her move. She left the hotel through the fire escape, emerging on the roof. She moved quickly, crouched low, and vaulted across a narrow alley gap. From the edge of the neighboring building, she had a perfect vantage point of the gray SUV. She aimed her burner phone's camera at the driver's face and snapped a shot. Within seconds, She uploaded the image to a dark channel network still operated by sympathetic allies. Veterans' rogue texts who owed Cerberus their lives. She waited. The reply came within 4 minutes. Operative ID Marston Eric, former CIA, transferred to Vanguard Solutions in 2017. Tied to Edward Kane. Her heart sank. Kane. She'd watched him bleed out in Syria, watched his convoy explode. She had killed him, or so she thought. If Kane was alive, then none of them were safe. Admiral Hayes stared at the open laptop in his office as the decrypted data from Leah's USB drive began unraveling. The files weren't just kill orders. They were mission debriefs, scrubbed after Cerberus completed objectives across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and even American territories. They showed something darker. Unauthorized objectives, targets that weren't originally part of their missions, civilian assets, political figures, journalists. Cerberus had been manipulated. They used them to clean up messes. Hayes muttered, and he saw Leah's photo. Her kill order marked immediate. The attached location data was live. She was being tracked. He picked up the encrypted phone and dialed. She's marked, and they're close. Leah returned to the hotel to find her room door slightly ajar. Not a good sign. She entered cautiously, body pressed against the wall, weapon raised. She scanned. Empty. No blood, no struggle, just silence. But on the bed, placed precisely in the center, was a black envelope with a gold wax seal bearing Kane's initials. She opened it. Inside, a photo of her and Admiral Hayes taken earlier that day, a red circle drawn around both of them. Below it, a message, "We finish what we start." She crushed the paper in her fist. She was tired of being hunted. If Kane wanted a war, he'd get one. That night, Leah made her way to an old SEAL safe house on the outskirts of Panama City. A forgotten warehouse tucked behind industrial lots. It hadn't been used in years. Dust covered the floor, but in a corner under a false panel lay exactly what she had stashed before disappearing in 2012, a lock box marked VO2. Inside were her original Cerberus weapons, custom sidearm, encrypted comms device, burner IDs, and a single photo of her teen self. She touched the photo softly. Ghost. Reaper. Echo. Mantis. All gone. She clipped her sidearm onto her thigh holster, loaded 2 mags, and strapped on her vest. No more hiding. She activated the CUM's device and tuned to an old frequency. It buzzed for several seconds, then cracked to life. Operator V2 requesting immediate intercept. Kane's alive. I'm going to draw him out. A moment of static, then a voice replied, "Understood, Viper. We're listening." Far across the country in a glass-walled building under a false consulting firm name, Edward Kane stared at Leah's face on a monitor. "She's awake," he muttered. Behind him a suited man said, "She shouldn't be. You assured us Cerberus was done." Kane turned, smirking. "Then let's finish the last ghost." He reached for his phone and pressed 1 number. Deploy the reclaim protocol. The warehouse safe house smelled like rust and oil, but for Lee Monroe, it smelled like home. Beneath flickering overhead lights, she laid out every item from her old Cerberus kit on a steel table. The gear was dusty, outdated, but functional. She reassembled the sidearm, blindfolded, more out of muscle memory than necessity. She stared at the faded team photo again. 6 operatives, their faces frozen in time, young and defiant. Viper, Talon, Echo, Ghost, Reaper, and Mantis. 5 of them now gone, not lost in combat, not fallen to war, erased. She placed the photo in a zip pocket inside her vest over her heart. Then she opened a second box, one she hadn't touched since she vanished. Inside lay a single encrypted hard drive, dusty but intact. It held data. She wasn't supposed to have debriefs, mission logs, communications, even GPS pings from former Cerberus members. All deleted from official systems, but not from hers. She powered it on. The screen blinked awake, the software loaded with a prompt Cerberus eyes only. She typed her old code name, Viper02, access granted. A list of missions populated, each with a small red tag next to them. One by one, she clicked. The red tags weren't designations for completed assignments. They were termination orders. Ghost, confirmed. Kia, vehicle explosion. Mantis, confirmed. Kier, balcony fall. Reaper, confirmed. Here, poisoned confirmed. KIA, single gunshot, Talon unknown. Only one tag remained yellow. Unconfirmed. Status active across the country. Admiral Hayes sat alone in his study. His private secure line buzzed. He answered immediately, already suspecting who it was. "Hayes," he said. "It's her," came the voice of a trusted Pentagon analyst. "She accessed a ghost drive at that warehouse in Panama City." "Viper's running the file." Hayes leaned forward. "Has Kane's team located her? They're scanning, but she's using subnetworked frequencies. She's 2 steps ahead." "Keep it that way," Hayes replied. "Let her lead us to Kane. He'll come for her. He can't help himself." The analyst hesitated. "Sir, if she gets caught, we can't cover her again." "She won't get caught," Hayes said quietly. "She's not the hunted. She's bait." Leah uploaded the decrypted Cerberus kill list into a cloud backup hidden behind a fake NGO domain. Then she opened the most important file, the final Cerberus mission log. It was dated 10 days before she disappeared. Location: northern Syria. Objective: eliminate an arms dealer supplying U.S. enemies. But the log showed something different. The arms dealer had been a CIA asset, not a terrorist. The order came not from military command, but from Edward Kane himself. It had been a test. Cerberus was sent to commit a political assassination, one that could never be traced back. When Lee questioned it, Kane's convoy was attacked and she was marked. Kier, in the chaos, but now she knew the truth. Cerberus wasn't disbanded. It was used then erased. Outside the warehouse, headlights blinked off one by one. Leah spotted them from a crack in the metal wall. 3 black SUVs, silent approach. Doors open. 6 men in tactical gear fanned out like phantoms. Kane's men. She had hoped for more time. No matter. She flipped the last switch on her vest and activated an old defensive system installed in the warehouse: electromagnetic pulse. Grenades wired to the main entrance. Anyone entering blindly would lose all incoming targeting tech. She positioned herself in the shadows behind stacked crates. Her heartbeat slowed, breathing regulated. The warehouse became a hunting ground. The first man breached the side entrance. Silent, professional. She waited. 2 more followed, flanking the eastern wall. She tossed a marble-sized device that bounced once, twice, then exploded in a flash of white light. They screamed, blinded, stunned. She dropped 2 with precise shots to their legs, avoiding fatal blows. The third turned and fired blindly. She ducked, rolled, and struck his face with a spinning elbow. He hit the ground unconscious. 3 more came in through the front, triggering the EMP. Their radios sparked and fizzled. Night vision went dark in confusion. One called out, "Fall back! Fall back!" But they didn't make it. Leah dropped from the rafters and subdued 2 with a baton strike to the throat and temple. The last one ran. She didn't chase. Instead, she grabbed one of the operatives and called Hayes. It started. Hayes answered, voice grim. "Casualties?" "None. I didn't kill them yet. Then Kane will escalate. Let him. He's afraid I'll talk. He should be." Hayes hesitated. "I've confirmed it. Kane survived. The CIA marked him dead in 2015 to protect a rogue operation in Syria. He's not just alive. He's rich, connected, and untouchable." "Not for long," Lee replied. She looked down at one of the unconscious men. She unzipped his vest. Inside was a hard plastic ID badge marked Vanguard Solutions, Tier 3 contractor. On the back was a map. He had gotten careless. That night, Leah stood on the roof of a cheap motel, staring out at the horizon. The badge fluttered in her hand like a challenge. She knew what this was now. No one was coming to save her. No medals, no honors. She wouldn't be remembered in any hall of heroes. But she could still fight. She was the last ghost, the only shadow still moving. And she wasn't done. The address on the back of the Vanguard Solutions badge led Leah to a remote site deep in the Virginia woods. It wasn't marked on any GPS map. No signage, no guards, just a gravel path veering off from an abandoned ranger station. A single camera perched on a dead tree silently rotated as she passed. She had expected a bunker or some high-tech facility. Instead, she found a church, old, boarded up, the kind of place you'd think had been swallowed by time. Leah parked a quarter-mile away and approached through brush. Every sound in the forest seemed louder, branches cracking, wind whispering through leaves, her own heartbeat steady in her ears. She circled the perimeter twice. The church's stained glass was long shattered, but recent tire tracks ran behind it. Someone had been using this place, not for prayer, for secrets. She entered through a collapsed wall. Inside, rows of pews were pushed to the side, replaced with surveillance gear and power sources hidden under tarps. Cameras faced every window. The altar had been hollowed out into a hatch. She opened it. A staircase descended into darkness. At the same time, Admiral Hayes was in a secure Pentagon briefing room facing 3 men in tailored suits who didn't blink nearly enough. "You had no authorization to release Monroe," the middle one snapped. "She was presumed Kier for a reason." Hayes didn't flinch. "She's the only surviving member of Cerberus. Someone's been targeting them, erasing them. That's not a coincidence. It's a hit list. You have no proof of that." Hayes slid a folder across the table. "I do now. Direct links from Kane's company Vanguard Solutions to every Cerberus operative's death. You want more proof? You're in it." The men exchanged glances. "You're risking a national security leak. I'm preventing one." Hayes growled. "If Lee dies, so does the truth. And trust me, what she knows could bring down half this building." Underground, Leah descended the stairs slowly. The basement smelled like concrete and cold metal. Bare bulbs lined the ceiling, buzzing faintly. This space was large, bigger than the church above. A command center had been carved into the earth. Surveillance monitors, weapon crates, server racks, all powered by a generator purring in the corner. She crept toward the central desk. A laptop sat open on screen. Kane's face paused, speaking to a man with blurred features. She clicked play. Kane's voice echoed in the silence. "She come here. She wants answers. If she survives the retrieval team, this is her next stop. Let her see what she left behind. Then we close the loop." Behind the video, an open document read, "Cerberus Termination Protocol, Final Phase." Then she saw it, a single word that made her blood run cold. "Talon active." Lee stepped back. Talon was alive years ago. Talon had been Leah's closest ally. His real name was Jordan Bryce. They trained together, deployed together, survived together. He was the one who saved her in Istanbul during a mission gone wrong. She buried him in a sandstorm in 2012 after a drone strike. At least, she thought she did. Now, Kane's words echoed again in her mind. "Finish what we started." Maybe that wasn't just about her. Maybe it was Talon's mission too. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Footsteps echoed above. She drew her sidearm and backed against the far wall. Voices. Movement. A silhouette descended the stairs. Weapon raised, she aimed, but when he stepped into the light, her heart nearly stopped. "Jordan," she whispered. He looked exactly as she remembered. Rugged jaw, eyes sharp, posture calm under pressure. He wore the Vanguard badge but held his rifle down. "Leah," he said flatly. "You're alive," she whispered. He nodded. "I never died. Neither did you. Looks like Kane got us both back on the leash." She didn't lower her gun. "Are you here to kill me?" He sighed. "I was sent to contain you." "That's not a no." He took a cautious step forward. "You're right about Kane. He used Cerberus and now he's burning the evidence. But I'm not here to finish you. I'm here to finish him." She stared at him. "Why should I believe you?" Jordan reached into his vest and pulled out a chip drive. "Because this is the kill roster. All 6 names. Kane's next target is Hayes." That hit her like a punch to the gut. "Hayes. Why?" "Because he helped you. That makes him a leak." They emerged from the church 15 minutes later. carrying every piece of data they could extract. Leah didn't trust Jordan completely. Not yet. But if he had wanted her dead, he'd had his chance. She radioed Hayes from a secure line. "Sir, you need to leave DC now." "Why?" "They're coming for you." A pause. "I've been expecting them," he said calmly.
"Just tell me."
"Do you have what we need?" She looked at Jordan, who nodded. "We've got everything." "Then bring it to me," Hayes said. "Let's end this." As the line went dead, Lee looked at the trees surrounding the church, felt the weight of every death on her shoulders. Barris had been built to do the unthinkable. Now it was time to do the impossible. Survive it. The drive back to Washington was tense. Lee sat in the passenger seat of Jordan's blacked-out SUV, fingers tight around her weapon, eyes never leaving the side mirror. Trusting him felt like lighting a match beside gasoline. He hadn't flinched when she brought up Barris. He hadn't hesitated when they discussed Kane. But trust didn't come easy after a decade of betrayal and death. "You sure you're not playing both sides?" she finally asked. Jordan didn't take his eyes off the road. "If I were, you'd already be dead." "That's not a denial." He gave a half smile. "You always did ask the wrong questions. Wrong answers got people killed." Jordan exhaled slowly. "I never stopped being one of us, Leah. I just buried it better than you." They arrived in DC at 3:43 a.m. The city was quiet, the streets damp from a light summer rain. Hayes had sent coordinates to a private garage beneath an old Marine-owned bookstore near DuPont Circle. It was the kind of place no one looked twice at. Perfect. As they pulled in, Hayes was already waiting, wearing a plain jacket and jeans. No military flair, just calm resolve. Lee stepped out first, holding a sealed case of drives. "You were followed?" Hayes asked. "Maybe, but if they were, they're slower than they think." Jordan popped the trunk. "We grabbed everything from Kane's black site. Digital kill orders, voice logs, private contracts, even the satellite trails tracking Barris." Hayes opened the case and began scanning the drives. Each lit up. Green. "This is enough to fry Kane," he muttered. "Enough to drag Vanguard into public hearings. Maybe even enough to indict a few senators." Jordan snorted. "And they'll spin it all in 48 hours. Disavow, deny, bury it again." Hayes looked at Leah. "Not if you testify." She stiffened. "I don't want my name back." "You wouldn't get it," Hayes replied. "But you'd stop this from happening again. You'd expose what they did to Barris." She was silent. In her pocket, the teen photo felt heavy. "Then we go public," she said, "but only when Kane's neutralized." The next morning, Kane stood inside a penthouse suite overlooking Arlington. He held a bourbon in one hand and stared at a security feed of the bookstore garage. "You see that?" he asked his aide. "She's alive and now she's with him." The aide shifted uncomfortably. "Should we send another team?" Kane swirled the bourbon. "No, we escalate. I want them eliminated in a way no one can trace." He walked to a vault, opened it, and removed a device the size of a shoebox. "Activate Chimera," he said. The aide hesitated. "That's not sanctioned." Kane's gaze turned to ice. "Neither is this war." At 6:12 p.m. Hayes, Leah, and Jordan relocated to a safe house in Alexandria. Hayes had kept off books since the Cold War. But just as they began uploading the evidence to 3 secured backup networks, all signals died. The lights flickered. A low hum rose from beneath the floor. Leah reacted first. Blast. Seconds later, the front windows shattered inward. 3 masked men in carbon black armor stormed in with suppressed weapons. Not just mercenaries. Chimera. Kane's most elite hit squad. Leah rolled over the couch and returned fire, hitting one in the leg. Jordan tackled the second before driving a blade through his vest seam. Hayes flipped the table for cover and passed Lee a backup radio. "Get out. Get it to the press now." But she didn't move. "I'm not leaving you." Another volley of suppressed shots forced them lower. Jordan grabbed Hayes by the collar. "With split, draw them out." Lee hesitated. Then she nodded. The trio broke through the back door and split across the alleyways. Chimera followed. Leah ran low across a fire escape, flipping between buildings like she'd trained to since she was 19. Her mind ran ahead of her. If Kane activated Chimera, he knew this was the final play. He wouldn't stop until every trace of Cerberus was erased. She had to flip the game. By midnight, Jordan and Hayes regrouped at an old metro tunnel beneath the PTO Ace. Lee wasn't there yet. She'll come, Hayes said, but Jordan didn't look convinced. She trusted me even after everything. That's rare, he muttered. She sees the good in people. That's why Kane feared her. Jordan looked at him. And what do you see? Hayes didn't answer. Instead, he turned on a portable receiver. Static, then a signal. It was Lee's voice. I'm at Vanguard headquarters. I'm ending this. In his penthouse, Kane stood in front of a wall of monitors. A red alert blinked. On-screen security breach. He frowned. One camera revealed a lone figure walking straight down the hallway. No mask, no helmet. Just Lee alone, he whispered. He activated. All units intercept Viper. Lethal force authorized, but Lee wasn't here to hide. She wanted him to see her. She wanted him to remember every life. And now she wanted him to pay. Leah walked down the steel corridor of Vanguard Solutions' underground headquarters like a ghost returning to haunt the living. Her boots echoed against the tile. No fear, no hesitation. This time she wanted to be seen. Surveillance cameras followed her, but she kept her hands at her sides, weapon holstered, shoulders squared. Every second she stayed alive was one more needle in Kane's paranoia. She passed a wall marked Tier 4 access only, then stopped in front of a biometric scanner. For a moment, she stared into it. Then she took a small square chip from her pocket, the one Jordan gave her back in the church, and slotted it into the scanner. Access granted. The door hissed open. She entered the lion's den. Far below, Kane watched her breach each layer of security. She's not even flinching, the aide murmured. Kane's jaw tightened. She's not bluffing anymore. She's hunting. He turned to a second screen where Chimera operatives waited in ambush position. She's in Corridor 6. Move in. Use room sweep gas. I want her disoriented, alive if possible. But Kane knew better. She wouldn't go quietly. Back in the tunnel system under the PTO Ace, Jordan and Hayes listened to Leah's radio broadcast. She's inside Vanguard, Hayes said. She's forcing Kane's hand. Jordan paced. She'll get herself killed. That place has more firepower than a small army. She's counting on that, Hayes said. She needs the world to see the truth. The attack. The response. The blood Kane's willing to spill just to stay hidden. Jordan looked at him. So what's our play? Hayes opened a satellite relay. We do what Cerberus always did. Strike where no one looks. We cut the head off the shadow. Inside Vanguard, Lee moved past the gas canisters, leaking white clouds into the vents. She slid a rebreather over her mouth, tucked in behind a support pillar, and counted 3. 2. 1. Chimera operator breached the hallway, blind firing through the mist. She dropped low, slid across the tile, and took his legs out from under him before he could scream. She struck his throat with the hilt of her blade, silent, clean. Another came through behind him, got too slow. She rolled behind him and shot twice, one in the vest, one in the helmet visor. He collapsed. She pulled his ID badge. 5. Perfect. Kane stared at the casualty list populating on his screen. 3 down already. The aide stammered. Sir, we should evacuate. Kane shook his head. No, we end it tonight. He tapped a button. A reinforced chamber in the sub-basement began to hum to life. Inside was a fail-safe. He never hoped to use Project Ragnarok, a custom virus designed to wipe all Vanguard servers, all field team data, and all Cerberus logs. A single keypress would erase everything. All these years, he whispered, I buried ghosts and left one alive. He stared at her face on the camera. She was always the most dangerous. Leah reached the server core. She attached a relay from her vest to the data port and launched the upload to the dark web. Everything: kill orders, Kane's voice memos, photos of her fallen teammates, even footage of Kane's secret meetings with arms dealers. The world wouldn't see it yet, but he was out there. Unstoppable now, her radio crackled, Jordan's voice. "You copy, Vapor?" She smiled faintly. "Copy." "You need to move." Kane's activating Ragnarok. If he purges those systems, he erases every thread. Not if I beat him to the core. Kane made his way to the vault. 2 guards trailed behind him. As he entered the secured room where Ragnarok hummed beneath blue lights, he placed his palm on the biometric panel and the countdown initiated. 5 minutes. He turned to leave, but he stopped cold. Lee was already inside. Standing beside the terminal holding a flash drive. "I don't think you're leaving, Kane," she said. His eyes flickered to her sidearm. "You're not going to shoot me. You need me. I'm the only one who can kill that protocol." "I don't need you alive for that," she said calmly. He smiled. "Then pull the trigger." She did. Single quotes. She stepped forward and inserted the drive. The screens flashed. Ragnarok overridden. Admin access revoked. Kane blinked. "That's impossible." "Jordan's code," she said. "Turns out he never forgave you either." Kane lunged. Too late. She sidestepped and struck him across the temple. He staggered back, groaning. "Tell me," she said, "who else was in on it? Who signed the Cerberus order?" Kane laughed, blood on his lips. "You really want to know?" She grabbed him by the collar. "Yes," he whispered. "It wasn't just me. The directive came from above, Hayes. From your president's cabinet. You think I'm the rot. I'm just the infection they used to stay clean." She recoiled, but only slightly. Somehow she already knew. Kane kept smiling. "You think you saved Cerberus' legacy. You just exposed it. You think they'll let you live now." She leaned close. "I'm not trying to live," she whispered. "I'm making sure no one forgets." Then she dropped the beacon from her vest. A military live stream transmitter, broadcasting everywhere. Kane's eyes went wide. She turned and walked away. Jordan and Hayes arrived outside as the stream went live. The footage. Kane admitting to the assassinations. Leah standing over him. Evidence pouring out into the net, every corner of it. Hayes looked at Jordan. "She did it." Jordan exhaled. "She just made herself the most dangerous witness on Earth." Hayes nodded. "Then we better make sure she stays alive." The broadcast burned across the internet like wildfire. Within minutes, servers in over a dozen countries mirrored the stream. Kane's confession, the kill orders, and black operations involving Cerberus, all exposed. For the first time, the shadows had been forced into the light, and the world was watching. Inside Vanguard's sublevel, Leah stood in silence over Kane's unconscious body. The live feed had ended, but the message remained. The last ghost had told her story. She reached into her vest, pulled out the tattered team photo, and left it on Kane's chest. "Now you can remember us." 2. Then she vanished into the dark. 3 hours later, headlines exploded, breaking. Leaked intel reveals covert assassination program run by rogue U.S. operatives. CIA official linked to deaths of Black Ops unit known as Cerberus. Unidentified woman exposes global conspiracy. Sources confirm she's former elite operator. The government scrambled. There were denials, condemnations, promises of investigation. But truth had already taken root. Lee Monroe had become a name whispered with reverence and fear. In a quiet safe house outside Annapolis, Lee sat with Jordan and Admiral Hayes around a flickering laptop. The screen showed encrypted logs being downloaded by watchdog journalists and independent investigators worldwide. It was over. Or at least this part of it. "You'll never be able to walk openly again," Hayes said, his voice low. "I haven't walked openly since 2012, Leah replied, sipping black coffee. "At least now I know who I am." Jordan looked up. "They'll keep hunting." Leah nodded. "Let them. They hunted us when no one knew our names. Now the whole world does. And they'll remember. Hayes leaned back, exhausted but proud. Cerberus wasn't perfect, but you made sure it wasn't forgotten. Leah stared at the sunrise. No, she said quietly. I made sure it wasn't buried. Kane was taken into federal custody that night. Not by the police, not by men in dark suits who didn't wear badges. His fate was never disclosed. Some said he died in prison. Others claimed he was traded in a deal to bury the scandal deeper. But Leah didn't care anymore. Her war was never about revenge. It was about truth. Weeks passed. U.S. military launched internal investigations. Cerberus was debated in Congress. Kane's connections were mapped. Some confirmed, many denied. But the deepest names, the real architects, remained hidden. That's how the system survived. Still, the world had shifted, and Lee had too. Morning, she returned to a familiar coastline in Maine. A remote cabin once used as a training outpost for Cerberus. Overgrown, faded, but standing. She rebuilt it slowly with her own hands. Wood, stone, silence. Not as a hideout, as a memorial. For Mantis, Reaper, Echo, Talon, and Ghost. She carved their call signs into a granite slab behind the cabin. No flags, no speeches. Just the wind, the trees, and the truth. She left her weapons inside a locked chest beneath the floorboards. Not because she was done fighting, but because she had finally earned the right not to. One morning, Jordan arrived, carrying a single envelope. He placed it on her porch, sat across from her and handed her coffee. "What's this?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "A new identity. From someone at the top who wants this all to disappear quietly." Leah didn't even open it. "I've been invisible long enough." Jordan tilted his head. "Then what now?" She looked out at the ocean. The waves were soft, peaceful. "I train them," she said. "The new generation. Not for war, for truth, so they know what not to become. And if they come again," she looked him dead in the eyes, "then Cerberus isn't gone. It's just waiting." That night, Leah lit a single lantern on the shoreline. One flame for each ghost, not mourning, not vengeance, not just remembrance. The kind that matters most when no one else is left to speak. And far off, in an office deep within the Pentagon, a general watched the same feed. He turned to his aide. "Cerberus isn't dead." "No, sir," the aide replied. "It just learned how to fight without being seen. END.